Good morning, my creative friends. This is take two on this morning's Paper Doll Chronicles. Sometimes technology is not always my friend, so my apologies for the restart. Let me know when you find me live, again, if you were on the first round, and definitely if you can hear me on this video. It would be really helpful if you popped into the chat and said, yes, I'm here and I can hear you. And hello, welcome. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I'm wearing my coziest PJs this morning. Yay, awesome. And our volume is back. So Painting in Your PJs with Minette is all about using art as a creative practice for self-discovery and personal growth. It's one of my favorite things to do. And this year we have been exploring, good morning, thank you, you guys. This year so far we've been exploring paper dolls of all kinds and themes. And this month, it's National Poetry Month, and it is a springtime, a time of renewal, rebirth, and it's also Easter. So there's all these things happening this month. And so all these themes are in my head. My thought is, how can we really honor and celebrate these themes in our own creative practices and explore what's important to us? It's also spring, and I'm struggling with spring allergies, so I apologize for the little bit of a froggy throat. So today we're going to play with bunny rabbits, because who doesn't love bunny rabbits? From, the bunny rabbit in the Wile E. Coyote Disney, to the Easter bunny growing up, to the rabbits that were congregating in the parking lot at our favorite coffee shop the other day. Bunnies are top of mind in this season of Easter and spring. So I went down a really fun rabbit hole, which also makes me think about Alice in Wonderland, of poems about rabbits. Yes, and the Velveteen Rabbit. So true. That's so funny. I just saw some Instagram post about Beatrix Potter and her bunnies, right? And so that whole theme is very prevalent now. And hi, Lisa, good to see you. So I went down my own rabbit hole of exploring poems about rabbits. And if you're on my email list, you got a copy of this poem in the Paper Doll Chronicles email yesterday. And I found this poem. It's by an unnamed poet called Misfit of Society, and it's called Going Down the Rabbit Hole. So I'm going to share this poem with you, and then I'm going to share some ideas and themes about the poem, and then we're going to dive into creating some paper doll bunny rabbits this morning. So lots of fun to come. Stay tuned. And remember, if you like what I'm sharing today, it really helps if you, one, subscribe to my channel, and two, if you just click that like button and let other people know this is a video worth exploring. So hopefully I won't be too froggy in the reading of the poem. Maybe frogs is another theme we'll explore. Going down the rabbit hole. Have we forgotten how to dream? To see the world through ourselves? The place we used to be is now lost. When we were children, we knew where that was. Before we knew the world, we only knew ourselves. Then we became aware of the world. The dream became the reality, and the reality became the dream. This dream has to be real, because it is all I've ever known. It is hard to let go and fall right in and go to places I've never been. At night, when we close my eyes, I dream of the place that we used to be. When I sleep, I remember who I am. But when I awaken, I forget again. The rabbit will take us there. Let's all go and chase the rabbit. The hole only gets larger. It is larger than you can imagine. You will never truly grasp the bottom. The rabbit's leading us down the hole. How deep down can this rabbit burrow? We're beginning to see from the in. We will never see out again. We are falling down the rabbit hole. Which way is up? Which way is down? We can't see the top, and we can't find the bottom. We're looking from the in, going to places we've never been. We're learning to dream again. Follow rabbit down the hole. Into the unknown we go. and that is Going Down the Rabbit Hole by Misfit of Society. And there is a link in the description of the video to this sweet, sweet poem. And I was thinking about this poem, and there's some great themes here. Themes around curiosity and exploration, about transformation and change. The act of falling down the rabbit hole represents that midlife transition that so many of us find ourselves in. It is a poem about dreaming again, about escaping the ordinary and exploring the unseen and unknown. So, as we work on our creative bunnies this morning, I'll continue to share a little more about some of these themes and some journaling prompts for exploring that theme a little bit deeper as well. But it's such a lovely, lovely poem to explore about going down the rabbit hole. So let's dive into our creative this morning. And so my thought this morning, as I was literally lying in bed, knowing I was coming down here, knowing I was going to play with some bunny rabbits. And what to do is, people often ask, what do you do with all the paper dolls? Well, one great thing to do with them is to include them in an art journal page. But as it's Easter, how fun would it, hello, how fun would it be to make some Easter cards with these bunnies? Or you could make sweet little tags to tuck into an Easter card, or looking at them all lined up here. It would also be fun to make like a stringing banner out of these. So a lot of really fun opportunities. I grabbed some different pieces of sort of springy scrapbook paper, a little bit of music paper to definitely decorate a card with. I've got a couple of blank watercolor cards to explore, but of course I want to start with my bunnies. And thank you, Lisa. As usual, I started with Midjourney to kind of come up with some creative ideas and designs for different animals. And if you're on the Paper Doll Chronicle email list yesterday, I emailed you out about 6 pages of different animal templates. And if you're not on that email list, the link to subscribe is below, and you can let me know that you would also like those animal templates. But I've been playing with the bunnies for a while now. These were my favorite 3 different shapes, and I'm kind of really loving these 2 with their sweet little clothes. I haven't cut them out yet. I printed the template out on cardstock. And I am going to continue my fun painting with my Sharpie acrylic paint markers. And we're going to see where we get to with these bunnies today. And as I'm looking at this, I'm just going to cut this little dude off for now. And I want to focus on these 2 sweet little bunnies who kind of match with their little Beatrix-y Potter here with their fun little matching suits. And I want to kind of think about maybe some spring colors as well. And of course, I don't know where I left my journal that has all my samples in it. But I'm really loving these Sharpie markers. They go on really nicely. The colors are very vibrant. If you were here last week, that's what I used to color our bear, inspired by Mary Oliver's poem. I've added to the bear since last week's video as well. You can see if I turn it that way, there's a bunch of little French knots, and I've added some flowers in that sweet little pouch. So still thinking about kind of how can I continue to play with dimension and then add this to, like I said, a cute card or a tag for a journal. I'm going to create a card today if we get that far along. Good morning, Tori. I'm glad you're here. I figured you'd be madly packing for your fun adventure. So I'm going to start with our sweet bunny here. Anybody else have fond memories of Easter? So when I was a kid, my grandparents had a large piece of property in Alamo Heights, which is part of San Antonio, Texas. and they loved to garden. They had a beautiful, huge garden, like a vegetable garden and a Oh, you're amazing, Tori. I can't believe you finished packing. That's awesome. They had an amazing vegetable garden, but they also had beautiful flowers and rose bushes and trees of all kinds. When my grandfather was still alive, he had a peach orchard. Peaches are still my favorite fruit. Oh my gosh, she's so stinking cute. But we would have these giant Easter egg hunts at Granny's house every year, and they were pretty competitive. And my older cousin's Granny would always make a gold egg and a silver egg, the big plastic eggs, and put $5 in them or $2 in them. And so there was always this mad competition to find the gold egg. And of course, the oldest cousins, they knew all of Granny's hiding places from the years. But we have some amazing family photos of all of the grandkids lined up in our Easter finery with our Easter baskets that are just touching and delightful. And we all seem to have copies of them. And they're some of my favorite photos. My mom used to make my Easter dresses, so I had all these precious dresses. All right, if she's going to be yellow, maybe he's going to be orange. And we would gather at Granny's house after church for a big feast. I think we would often have turkey and ham at Easter time, and it was always a potluck. And all the adults brought 2 dozen dyed eggs each. There were 4 siblings, so 4 families, and we would have to go hide in the back bedroom while they would go out and hide the Easter eggs. So lots of memories of Easter. And then both where we lived in Santa Barbara, California, and here in Colorado, well, I guess even when we lived in Texas, there's just an abundance of urban bunnies everywhere, right? So they tend to be pretty people friendly, not too skittish around here. So we enjoy bunnies everywhere. And they always make me think of spring. And the poem Going Down the Rabbit Hole made me think of Alice in Wonderland falling into the rabbit hole as well, and the white rabbit, right, who's always worried about time. So bunnies have a popular representation in our culture, in myths and stories throughout time. And I meant to look up the symbolism of rabbits, and I forgot to do that. Okay, these are wanting to be super bright and happy colors. And I think we're going to make this part yellow too. So I'm just going to have some fun, and I'm going to quickly color these. So sometimes, we think that creating has to take a lot of time, but when you start with a fun template like this, it can be pretty quick and simple. I know I'm going to want to add some stitching to these as well, and maybe some of those dried paper flowers. I'm having a lot of fun with adding dimension to things. But I want to go back to our poem for a moment about going down the rabbit hole and this idea of following ourselves into the unknown. There's a lot of themes in the poem about how deep down can this rabbit go. We're beginning to see from the in. We'll never see from the out again, which to me has a lot to say about that introspective deep reflection that art is such a great tool to help us get there. Okay, I think they need to be a little matchy-matchy here. So using these Sharpie markers, my color choices are limited, so it makes color choice a little sometimes easier and sometimes limiting. But about this idea, if we follow the rabbit down the rabbit hole, if that burrow is within, what is it that we will find within? Will we like what we see? Will we not like what we see? Are we afraid to go within? Is it a normal part of our own personal practice to spend time in deep reflection? It can be daunting to do some of that deep inner work, but it's where the answers lie to most of the questions that we have, especially questions about who am I or what's my purpose. Those questions definitely flow from within, and yet we're taught to spend so much of our time and energy seeking without, right? Looking for answers in books, in therapists, in coaches like myself, right? And yet the best therapists and coaches both really, their jobs are to help us remember who we are, not to become someone else, but really to remember that we're pretty freaking amazing people. Okay, he's going to be one colorful dude here. And then when we need to really settle into doing some of that deep reflective work, curiosity is our best friend. When we do that, go down the rabbit hole with curiosity rather than judgment or having any preconceived ideas of what we might find, that journey becomes joyful, it becomes playful, and it certainly becomes really beneficial. Awesome, Tori. Thank you. Thank you for looking it up. Fertility, abundance, intuition, transformation, good luck, new beginnings, even trickery or madness. So whenever we're working with archetypal symbolism or animal symbolism, there is always the gifts and the challenge of a particular character, archetypal character or animal character. And it's important to be mindful of both of those because both are teachers. It's not to say it's wrong or it's bad, but simply to pay attention, right? To pay attention to what is showing up. So when I see a particular animal once, I might think, oh, that's fun. When I see it twice, I pay a little bit more attention. And then if it crosses my path 3 times, and it could cross my path on, they start to show up on Instagram. And now that we're talking out loud about them, you'll probably see bunnies on your Instagram page today, or Beatrix Potter posts, Alice in Wonderland post. And so sometimes they let themselves be known, right? As, hey, I'm here. I have a message for you. Sit up and pay attention. So early the other morning, really early, I don't know. Oh, it wasn't too early. Maybe it doesn't matter. I'm thinking I want her to have we did an apron with a bear, maybe a little fold out booklet or little pop up there on her dress is feeling kind of fun. So we went to get coffee at our favorite coffee shop, Ziggy's. Tori, I don't know if when you were in Estes Park you ever went to the Ziggy's drive-through. One of my favorite cups of really good dark roast coffee. And the other day there were 3 bunnies all sitting together in the parking lot. So it made me sit up and take notice, right, of what do these rabbits have to say today? Sorry, I'm trying to color and talk at the same time. What message do they have for me today? We see a lot of hawks and birds here of all different kinds, and the birds are back. The swallows are back. I love the swallows so much. And our ospreys are back. So I'm very present to this energy of spring, and rabbit is one of those animals that also really represents spring. Okay, she's stinking cute. She's holding a little flower here, but I'm thinking I might want that to be like a paper flower, which of course I don't have sitting here on my desk. I also was going through some other things the other day, and she might need some of this pretty fabric this is embroidery on tulle that a friend gave me, and look at those beautiful spring colors on these little pieces of tulle. So maybe this is going to get added to her for some of that beautiful texture. So look around your stash, see what you have lying around, and what might be fun to add a little bit of texture. Okay, I think they need to match, right? So let's give him a turquoise coat here. So you could be doing this with Crayola markers, with colored pencils, with Posca paint pens. The ones I did in my journal, I did with colored pencils, watercolor pencils. I got a new set and I really like them. But they weren't great on cardstock, so they were great on mixed media paper or watercolor paper. And one of my questions for you today is there a rabbit hole in your life right now that's asking for exploration? Is there perhaps something you're wanting to lean into, some aspect of your own life that is worthy of exploration? I'm reading this really fun book right now called Storyworthy. Thank you, Karen. Called Storyworthy. And I colored over his lapel there. And he has all these fun different ways to collect our stories, and talks a lot about the value of exploring our stories. And he shares a lot of his own stories and how one memory can trigger another. And he had it was really fun. It was like first, last, best, something. There was one more. There were like four categories, and then you would think about things like your first kiss, and your first kiss, your last kiss, your best kiss, your first pet, your last pet, your best pet, etc., etc. And it was such a fun way. And so then he shared examples of how he came upon these, where's my dark teal, forgotten memories from his childhood by simply playing this game. And it helped him to remember some pretty poignant memories that he had forgotten. And we have so many of those childhood memories that are lost, but are often, it's really worth it to resurface those memories, especially if we've been holding on to them for a long time. So I love how fast these are coming together, super quick here. I think his little shirt is going to stay white. Her little tail is going to stay white. Okay, they feel very, very springy and happy. And so for me, just thinking about bunnies took me down that rabbit hole of Easter memories and childhood memories and, being annoyed because my older boy cousins, I had one aunt and uncle that had four boys, and the two oldest always found the gold and silver egg. They were faster than the rest of us, and they knew all the hiding spots, right? So, we think about those things that now don't seem important that were, gosh, my cousin Trey has to be getting close to 70, and that's kind of crazy to think about. In my head, he's still that kid in high school, right? And my wonderful Uncle Nard, who was their father, that has some paint on the tip, just recently passed away. He was almost 90. And thinking about that part of the family and my cousins, so my cousin Ted, there were three of us that were all had been born. My grandmother must have been so busy, just a few months apart. And Ted and I were the closest in age. And he died when I think I was pregnant with Connor, and of leukemia. And it was such a big loss in the family. And so, you just start to explore just thinking about rabbits and Easter. And your stories and that deep reflection, and it starts to think about those rabbit holes of experience and the different things that have happened in your life that have really formed who you are today. And in this theme season of renewal and rebirth, it's a beautiful moment to just pause and to go down some of those rabbit holes. And those rabbit holes may be joyful and fun, they may be nostalgic, they may be a little bit sad. All right, I don't know what I'm going to do about cutting out those whiskers. I probably should have cut them out first, and I can draw the whiskers on whatever background he ends up on. So we're just starting to bring them to life, give them some character. And it's one of the things that I notice when I allow myself to just sit with my creative practice, even when it's something really simple and playful like this, just to allow my thoughts to flow, stream of consciousness, no judgment. I'm not staying stuck. That was one of the things he talked about in the book this morning. That was in one of the writing practices, was like, don't get stuck on a thought. Like, just follow your thoughts down that rabbit hole wherever they take you. Just stay curious. And I love coming in with this black fine liner and adding these outlines. It just brings the bunny to life, makes it feel complete. These I found at an office supply store, Karen. And the packaging was so fun, I had to give them a try. So these are by an artist named Bree Reese, Brea Reese, Reese, like a Reese's Pieces. And it was her set of fine liner pens in different sizes. And it's interesting. I like my microns better. The black in these is not super, super black. And but the pen, the ink is really nice. They flow really nice. And they were tucked in with these Sharpie paint markers, and I forgot I had bought them. I do that all the time. I tuck supplies away in my studio and then I forget that they're there. Give him some little shape to his paws there. And it's always fascinating to watch rabbits in the wild or other animals in the wild. They have a lot to teach us about by their behavior. So if you've ever noticed they're very usually in the wild drab brown color and they camouflage themselves really well. And when they feel a threat, they freeze. If you get too close, they will run, they will flee, but often they will just freeze because one of their biggest predators here are the big birds. So we have all kinds of hawks here. We have osprey, which tend to fish more than go after bunnies, but we also have bald eagles here that love to snack on some bunnies for lunch. They're amazing. They go after the big Canada geese too, which are not small birds, but they are not very high up, right, in the food chain, as the saying goes, and so they've learned a lot of coping mechanisms, but they're also incredibly playful and they're very curious. I'm working on the content and the creative for my spirit animal painting retreat that's coming up in less than a month. I can't wait. And so animal symbolism is really top of mind. Plus, one of the principles that I teach in my group coaching program, Your Midlife Renaissance, is deep play and how important it is for us to learn how to play again when often our culture does not celebrate or approve of or make time for play. Okay, that triangle needs to be a little bit different color. And yet, it's how humans and animals learn is through play, whether it's lion cubs learning to paint, to hunt, whether it's kids learning to get along on the playground. Play is the way that human and animals learn. And I always think of bunnies as a great example of that. Okay, now I need to decide how much detail do I want to add to these, or maybe I'll add the detail later. I want to figure out how I'm going to put these on a card or a tag and kind of go from there. But they definitely need a little something, something, some fun decoration. The sample ones I did in my journal are covered in all kinds of patterns and designs and some Zentangle patterns. So maybe if I start to play with one of them a little bit on a background, it will spark some ideas. Again, she's going to need some flowers there, maybe a little bouquet of paper flowers. So I'm going to cut these out and we're going to see where we can go from next. I'm curious who else has lots of memories about Easter. We celebrated Easter with our kids, but we never lived close to family. And, the Easter egg hunts for two never seemed to be quite the Easter egg hunts of my memory. But, Brad and I both had memories of church and Easter baskets from childhood. Okay, I'm just going to cut that flower off knowing that something else is going to get added there. I also cannot wait to try. So I don't know if anybody else has seen the fabric that you stitch on, but then you get it wet and the fabric disappears. It like dissolves in water, so you're just left with the stitching. It's like stick and stitch or something like that. And I found on Instagram this wonderful woman named Debbie who has a company called Stitched Stories Embroidery. And I bought some of her kits to play with, and because I've been thinking about bunnies, I bought some of these stick and stitch bunnies to play with. So you sew them onto another piece of fabric and then wash away the fabric, and it seems like a fun exploration to try. Sorry, that's a little blurry there when I'm lifting that up. And I just finished my first one of her embroidery kits. And of course, I had to pick the one. It was about start the day with gratitude and a cup of coffee, which was perfect for me. Oh my gosh, there she is, so stinking cute. She needs some whiskers. And she definitely needs some flowers. And she's a girly rabbit. She needs some little eyelashes. And where's some white, 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 white? Okay, my desk is like exploding at the moment. All right, she's starting to come alive, like have some more personality there. The new dress, always the new dress, yeah, and shoes for sure. We didn't do hats. We didn't do hats, but always a new dress for Easter was a big deal. We didn't get new clothes very often, right? Like it's not like it is today. We would get new clothes for back to school. There was always a new Easter dress. In high school, there was the prom dress. We might get some clothes at Christmas time. But getting new clothes was pretty special. And I also remember, it's funny, I'd forgotten about this memory. See, once you start going down those rabbit holes of memories, my stepdad was so sweet. He would always get my grandmother and my mom a beautiful corsage every Easter to wear. And then usually us or somebody would also get Granny a potted hydrangea. And growing up in Texas, I only ever saw a hydrangea in a pot. And then when we moved to California. They're like the size of houses, these huge, amazing, beautiful shrubs with these huge, beautiful blooms. It was like a whole nother thing. And I still to this day love hydrangea flowers. He feels very dapper in his little coat and vest and his little bow tie. And he feels like she wants some texture and some things flowing. Always watch the film about the Easter parade with Judy Garland. I don't know that one, Karen. That sounds amazing. She definitely wants some texture. I think maybe this is going to get glued on here and become part of her. Can't decide if it's a bouquet or if it's maybe just her little dress here. This is the part about mixed media art I love, is just the trying things on for size, like what's gonna fit, what's gonna add that sweet element. It definitely feels like she wants to be maybe holding a bouquet. So let's see what we can do here. Tulle is sort of fussy to work with. But I'm going to cut some of the tulle away from this beautiful embroidery. Oh, it was another moment of nostalgia. So my friend Leslie found this beautiful embroidered tulle at Joann's before, we all heard that they're going out of business here in the United States. And so I had a fun memory of shopping at Joann's with my friend Leslie. Lorraine, I will go back and look. I'm pretty sure I saw it. I'm sorry if I didn't reply. Sometimes it takes me a while to get back, and thanks for reminding me. I will go after the call and make sure I check for that email. Okay, that's super cute. That's all she needed, was just that little bit of pink. I've got some Aleene's Fabric Fusion glue, which works great for working with fabric, but also paper and fabric together. And are you stuck up in there? Feels like it. Okay, I'm just going to pour a little bit of this out on my palette here, maybe. Are you going to come out? This is super thick glue, and I got it when my friend Karen was here in the studio and we were making these super fun felt paper dolls. And this glue ended up being great for, not paper dolls, felt dolls. I think that's what I want to play with in May is I've been wanting to make some flat felt dolls, so like paper dolls, but with felt. And so I think we'll play with that next month. I also want to play with, I have so many ideas for paper dolls. I also am hosting a beautiful retreat in September in near Portland, Oregon, the Wild and Sacred retreat, where we are going to be creating a set of prayer flags connected to the elements. And of course, I have a image in my head of adding to paper dolls to at least one of the flags, and certainly animals as well, and to really make the flags my own. Okay, she's super cute. And so I've been thinking about how could I explore adding some dolls to fabric as well in a different way. So I've got lots of ideas. I'm feeling like she might want one of these little pink flowers on her cheek. Just kind of connoting that idea that she's blooming, right? That everything is blooming. So I know many of you have had your flowers up and blooming for probably a while now. And here in Colorado, spring comes late. My daffodils are just now in full bloom, and my tulips are just starting to put their buds on. All right, she's coming together with some fun texture there. I may still go back and add some other, maybe some fun little stitching to the stripes. I feel like adding a little piece of white felt maybe to her tail to give her a puffy tail, or I could just add some satin stitching, I think, to her tail to give her a little bit more character. And let's see, this dude feels like he needs to be fancy also to kind of match her, but in a different way. I'm going to wash that brush off. Your tulips are well out in London. I bet they are. They were well out when I was in Oregon a couple of weeks ago also. Okay, let's get some little details there. Okay, I'm not sure yet, so I am going to, oh, these might be fun. I love using stencils as well. So look around again, like look around your studio. What do you have that you could use? Maybe especially something that you haven't used for a while. So maybe some color on color here. And then that might be a fun guide for adding a little bit of stitching to his jacket to make it give it that fun embroidered feel. Little messy with the pen through the stencil, but it kind of gives that idea of where I'm going. I'm going to clean that off. I am. I have lost my paper towels. So I'm going to take some painty fabric. Like, don't be afraid to use things that you've painted up and get more paint on them. Clean that stencil up a little bit. Normally I would use a baby wipe, but they're on the other side of the studio. I'm going to cover that one up so I don't smear it, and I'm just going to repeat that right on that other side so we get some little bit of symmetry in our pattern there. Okay, and then I put the marker down. I've never used these through a stencil before. This is a pretty fat stencil. It also has a lot of built up paint on it, so I'm not going to get a super clean, but I'm okay with that. A little bit of a messier look, especially if I'm going to add some stitching and it's just a bit of a guideline there. Oh, interesting, the paper stuck to it, so fun to just to see what happened and know that, interesting, I wouldn't have thought that paper would have adhered like that. So I'm going to repeat that pattern up here. Just want to get one of those little fun flower shapes there. That one came out really messy. It's interesting, it's bleeding under the stencil quite a bit. But you guys know everything is paint overable. Aw, thanks, Karen. Your parents planted a grapefruit tree that is full of flower at this season, and the aroma is heaven. Oh, I miss California citrus for sure, Blanca. So maybe we're just going to kind of create our own little flowery patterns here. Kind of mimic that pattern, and then I'll come back once it's completely dry and add some stitching to it. And I'm just going to paint over where that paper stuck. It's fascinating that the paper stuck. Who knew? Let's see if we can just blend out that little blip there. Okay, so he's feeling cute and like he's ready for some stitching, which will probably be something I do while sitting watching TV this evening. And I am going to, so of course I grabbed some papers and some colors, but didn't really think too much about what I was painting the bunnies with. But I kind of, I might even just cut out some words to go with him. I might even just sketch a simple landscape and some botanicals around him because he's super cute. And if I start to add paper, except for maybe some of this music paper might be fun on the bottom, I'm going to start to lose him in the background. Those are not the right colors, although the little polka dots are kind of fun. What if he's standing on top of a flower? Getting glue all over everything. Decisions. I do kind of like those little polka dots, but I'm feeling like he wants something a little more simpler so that he is the star of the show. So a lot of times we see all these fancy cards with, you know, so many layers. Like, don't feel like everything needs to have so many layers. Like sometimes what it needs is simplicity. And this would be a fun one. You could just write Happy Easter on the side, right? So remember to sometimes simpler is better. But the music reminds me of singing in church, which was always my favorite part of going to church, was the music. And then maybe I want to come back with that same pattern or one of these patterns, and we can just add some little hand-drawn elements to him. I don't want to glue him down because I do want to add some stitching to him. But I'm going to commit and glue down this music paper, and then I'll trim that up. I like the gold shiny paper, but it's not quite feeling right. But what's interesting is this is the little part at the top where it's attached to the book or the page for printing purposes. And it's kind of the right color with that little bit of teal on the top. Scissors. Everything is so piled up, I keep losing everything. Maybe she wants to have some of these fun fabrics with her. Look how cute that is. So maybe one of the cards will, or maybe this will be a tag for a journal of having her on that piece of fabric. That's fun. So lots of ideas. So I'd love to just glue things down and then trim them afterwards. This is a trick I learned from my soul collage years and from working with one of my mentors, other mentors in intuitive collage, because it gets us in that energy of we keep creating and we don't stop and we aren't trying to make it perfect. So it's a great tip to just kind of let things flow over the edges and trim them after the fact. Plus it actually ends up being neater and you get the right size of things. This piece is really pretty also. Definitely feeling like he wants to stay white along the edges there. And now I have this kind of lime green on here. I'm like, oh, he's going to need some of this brighter green to kind of pull it together. That may not show on the screen. Give him some polka dots in his vest. And I might add some little stitches or French knots on his vest and his sleeves, or maybe the stitching on that teal will be this bright color of green. Maybe we'll give him a little bit of some marks and fur on his nose. Now we get to have the fun is in the details for me so often. So he just starts to fit a little bit better on the page. Okay, so feels like he is in good process. Gonna add some stitching and then I'll get him glued down. And he's gonna be super sweet. So this can go to my mom or my stepdad. They love still to celebrate Easter and have a nice Easter card. But for this one, I'm feeling like there's more to come here. So this is a hand-dyed piece of fabric. It's in the right colors. Let's see, I have this one also. Oh, I love that idea. This other little great idea. You guys always have the best ideas. Thanks, Lorraine. He needs that little matching flower on his lapel, so they're partners. Great idea. So sweet. Okay, I will get that glued on. Nope, not that one. So if I want this to be kind of a long, skinny tag here, actually works on the card, I could just take my sewing machine and stitch that fabric right onto the cover of that card, or I could use that glue and glue her on, but that also feels fun. I love it. Looks like there's a little landing and a sidewalk here for her. So they're not quite finished, and I'm being mindful of the time. And it totally feels like she needs to go over here. So look at, she's like looking at him adoringly. Maybe she's opening her door so we can make up whole stories, right, around these characters. She might need some of that green to make them match, but all of a sudden we have this sweet little story with our Easter bunnies that is coming to life from just an hour of really simple play and going down that spring rabbit hole of memory and introspection. Thanks everyone for joining me live. Thanks also for those of you that are watching the replay. I so appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you guys all live again next week. We're going to do a larger animal paper doll of a deer next week. I have a design that I'm really wanting to play with, so I think that's where we're going to go next time. I'll see you all there. Thanks so much for joining me live. Thanks for your comments and chatting with me. I appreciate it. Helps me know I'm not alone just talking out into the world. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.